The year was 1944. General Patton's tanks were screaming across France. But tanks are nothing without fuel, and men are nothing without bread. The solution was the Red Ball Express, a non-stop convoy of thousands of trucks. Corporal Gearbox Jones was a driver. He sat in the high cab of the GMC 2.5-ton truck, nicknamed the Mudlark. His world was a narrow strip of shattered asphalt and the constant vibrating roar of a 6-cylinder engine. The stagnant mile. The rules of the Red Ball were strict. You drove at exactly 25 miles per hour. No faster, no slower. It was a lent, slow, and grueling pace. You drove for 18 hours straight, staring at the red dots painted on the rear of the truck in front of you. "If I go any slower, I'm going to start growing moss, Gearbox," muttered his co-driver, Slim, who was trying to sleep against the vibrating door. Jones gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white. "Speed kills the engine, Slim, and it kills the tires. We aren't racing. We're flowing, like a river. You don't rush a river." The blackout maze as night fell, the mission became truly Lent. They had to drive in total darkness to avoid being spotted by Bedkeck Charlie, the lone German planes that scouted for lights. They used cat-eye Slitsteiny hooded lamps that threw a sliver of light only 5 feet in front of the bumper. Jones leaned out the window, his face lashed by the cold French rain. He had to navigate by the sound of the engine in front of him and the faint glimmer of the wet road. It was a test of absolute patience. Every turn was a gamble. Every bridge was a potential trap. Suddenly, the convoy slowed to a crawl. A bridge over a small creek had been partially collapsed by a previous shell. The inch of steel. The engineers had laid down 2 narrow steel treads across the gap. There was no room for error. If a tire slipped an inch to the left or right, 500 gallons of high-octane aviation fuel would go into the ravine. "I can't see the treads, Gearbox," Slim whispered, now wide awake. "I don't need to see them," Jones said, his voice dropping to a lent, rhythmic hum. "I can feel them through the steering column." He put the truck into the lowest gear. The engine groaned, the heavy tires biting into the slick metal. He moved the truck an inch at a time. The steering wheel fought him, kicking back as the weight shifted. He didn't look at the drop. He looked at the silhouette of the trees against the dark sky to keep his bearings. The sleepwalker's ghost. They cleared the bridge, but the night wasn't over. The Lent sleep began to set in, that dangerous state where the eyes stay open, but the brain shuts down. Jones felt the pull of the dark. He began to hum a slow, steady tune to the beat of the windshield wipers. Swish-clunk, swish-clunk. He saw ghosts in the road, imaginary stone walls, and phantom hitchhikers. He bit his tongue to stay awake, the metallic taste of blood sharper than any coffee. He knew that if he stopped, the entire belt of the convoy would snap. The golden dawn, when they finally reached the fuel dump at 6 o'clock, the sun was a pale, watery disk behind the clouds. The tank commanders were already waiting, their engines idling. Jones didn't climb out of the cab. He just leaned his head against the steering wheel while the gas monkeys emptied his cargo. He was covered in grease and salt, his legs shaking from the constant tension of the clutch. A young lieutenant walked up and tapped on the door. "Good timing, Corporal. We were down to our last 5 gallons. You're a lifesaver." Jones looked at the lieutenant, his eyes bloodshot and heavy. "We didn't fly here, sir," Jones said with a lent, weary smile. "We just didn't stop." The war eventually crossed the Rhine, and the Red Ball Express was retired, replaced by fixed pipelines and trains. But the men who drove the Mudlarks never forgot the 25-mile-per-hour war the Lent. Steady pulse of a convoy that proved that sometimes the slowest way is the only way to win.